She'd been lying in the body bag for 15 minutes. The zipper was closed, the paperwork was signed, the doctors had done everything they could. And then, she moved. These are 5 real stories, 5 people who crossed the line that separates the living from the dead and somehow found their way back. Not near-death experiences, not close calls. These people were officially declared dead, on paper and in fact. And then they weren't. Tonight, we will meet 5 people. A radiologist who spent over 3 hours with no heartbeat, trapped beneath the ice of a frozen mountain river in Norway. A mother of 3 who collapsed in a school parking lot. Her heart completely stopped for 24 minutes, as her children were just inside. A 66-year-old man whose heart restarted on its own, 10 minutes after doctors walked out of the room and stopped trying. A woman who was placed in a morgue refrigerator and knocked on the door from the inside 21 hours later. And a young man who was zipped into a body bag, declared dead, and woke up to the sound of the zipper above his face. 5 stories that science still struggles to fully explain. First up, January 20th, 1999, the mountains of northern Norway. A ski slope outside the town of Narvik. Anna Bogenholm was 29, training to be a radiologist, athletic and comfortable on skis. She was skiing with 2 friends when it happened. She caught an edge on a patch of ice and went down. She slid into a frozen mountain stream. The ice gave way beneath her, and Anna fell through, head first into the freezing water below. Her friends threw themselves to the ground and reached for her. They grabbed her skis, they held on. But the current beneath the ice was pulling her forward, and the ice above her, it closed back over. Anna Bogenholm was trapped under the ice, head first, in water that was barely above freezing. She found a small air pocket, a tiny space between the ice and the stream, and breathed there in the dark and the cold for as long as she could. 80 minutes passed before rescue teams could reach her. When they finally pulled her free, her body temperature had dropped to 13.7 degrees Celsius. For context, the normal human body temperature is 37 degrees. She was more than 20 degrees below the threshold of survival. Her heart had stopped. She had no pulse. She wasn't breathing. By every standard medical definition in the world, Anna Bogenholm was dead. The helicopter flew her to Tromsø University Hospital. But one doctor made a decision. They would not stop. Not yet. "You are not dead," he said, "until you are warm and dead." For 3 hours and 45 minutes, the team worked to re-warm her body. For 3 hours and 45 minutes, her heart did not beat. And then, at the 4-hour mark, it did. 1 beat. Then another. Then another. The line that had been flat for hours began to move. 6 days later, Anna opened her eyes. She could speak, think, and remember everything. 18 months after the accident, after months of rehabilitation that no one expected to work, Anna Bogenholm returned to work as a radiologist. She had not simply come back from the dead. She had come back better than anyone thought possible. It was a Tuesday morning, ordinary in every way. Tessa Romero was doing what she did every single day. She was driving her children to school. She pulled into the parking lot, said goodbye, and watched them walk toward the entrance. And then, something inside her chest went wrong. Not a pain exactly, more like a sudden wave of wrongness she couldn't name. She managed to open the car door before she fell. By the time paramedics arrived, Tessa's heart had completely stopped. 24 minutes. That is how long she had no heartbeat. For most people, the brain begins to suffer irreversible damage after 4 to 6 minutes without oxygen. At 10 minutes, most doctors consider survival unlikely. At 24 minutes, doctors do not expect people to come back. The paramedics worked on Tessa in the parking lot, then in the ambulance, then in the emergency room. 24 minutes of CPR, of shocks from a defibrillator, of a team that refused to accept what every protocol told them was already over. And then her heart responded. One shock, then another. And somewhere deep inside that stillness, the rhythm came back. Tessa spent days in the ICU. Doctors warned her family to prepare for the worst. They waited and waited. And then Tessa Romero woke up. She recognized her children. She recognized her husband. She could speak, think, and remember. The damage that should have been there never showed up. Tessa later said she remembered nothing of the 24 minutes. No darkness, no pain, just a gap. And then her children's faces. She still drives them to school every morning. The medical world has a name for it. They call it the Lazarus phenomenon. Named after the biblical figure raised from the dead, it describes something that should not be possible. A heartbeat returning on its own after CPR has stopped, after doctors have walked away, after death has already been declared. A 66-year-old man went into cardiac arrest and the hospital responded in full emergency mode. The team worked on him for 17 minutes, CPR, medication, defibrillation, everything they had. After 17 minutes, there was no response. The lead doctor looked at the clock, then the monitor, then the team around him. And he said the words that no family ever wants the next phone call to contain. The team stepped back. Someone turned off the machines and the room began to empty. 10 minutes passed. A nurse who had stayed behind, looked up from her notes. The monitor. It was moving. Not a glitch, not a malfunction. His heart, with no help from anyone or anything, had simply started again. He survived. Because of cases like his, medical authorities now recommend wait and observe for a minimum of 10 minutes after stopping CPR before declaring death, because the body sometimes has one more attempt left. Of all the stories in tonight's video, this one is the hardest to imagine. Not the dying part, the waking up part. Edwina Brandt was an elderly woman from South Africa. She was admitted to a hospital after a serious illness. Her condition deteriorated quickly. And then, by every measure available to the doctors treating her, she died. Hospital staff completed the paperwork, notified the family, and moved Edwina Brandt's body to the morgue. They placed her in a refrigerated drawer and shut the door. 21 hours passed. The morgue workers arrived the next morning, and they heard something. A sound coming from inside one of the drawers. They looked at each other. They listened again. It was knocking. Faint and slow, but unmistakable. Someone was knocking from inside the drawer. They opened it. Edwina Brandt was alive. She had spent 21 hours in a refrigerated morgue drawer, in the dark, in the cold, alone. At some point, no one knows exactly when, she had regained enough consciousness to understand where she was. And she had knocked. In interviews afterward, Edwina said she remembered waking up in the dark, the cold, not knowing where she was. And she remembered deciding quietly, in the dark, that she was not finished. Our final story tonight is perhaps the most personal, because unlike the others, Vincent Tolman remembers. He remembers what happened after. Vincent was 22 years old. He had taken a supplement, something he thought was harmless, that turned out to be devastating to his system. He was found in a bathroom, unresponsive, with no pulse and no breathing. Paramedics worked on him for over 20 minutes. There was nothing. He was pronounced dead. Paramedics placed his body in a bag. The zipper was closed. 15 minutes passed. Someone, a paramedic still at the scene, thought they felt something through the bag. Not a noise, not a movement, just a feeling. The kind that experienced first responders sometimes can't explain but can never ignore. The zipper was opened. Vincent Tolman was breathing. He survived. But what Vincent says happened during those 15 minutes in the body bag is something that cannot be explained by medicine alone. He describes it not as darkness or nothing, but as something more vivid and real than anything he'd felt while awake. He came back changed. He woke up to the sound of a zipper, and the first thing he saw was light. 5 people, 5 moments where the line between here and gone got crossed and somehow, against every odds, crossed back. Anna, frozen beneath the ice, her heart silent for nearly 4 hours. Tessa, gone for 24 minutes while her children were just inside. The man whose heart started again 10 minutes after the room had emptied. Edwina, who knocked her way back to the living from inside a morgue. And Vincent, who woke up to the sound of his own zipper being opened. Most of them say the same thing. They say that what they brought back wasn't fear. It was clarity. A sudden, undeniable understanding of what matters and what doesn't, of who they love and how little time any of us spend saying so. If these stories moved you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. Tell me which story hit you the hardest. And if you want to be here when the next story drops, subscribe and turn on the bell. Because next time, we go even deeper. Thank you for being here. Take care of the people you love.